How you doing?
Good. How's it going, guys?
Excellent. Thanks. Everybody, welcome. This is episode 113 of Tech Sales Insights. Definitely looking forward to have Travis Ashby, who is the CEO and founder of WorkLife, a very cool company taking care of the all-important mental health and some other issues to keep everybody happy, sad, and especially come out of this post-COVID time. His topic is how to intrinsically motivate your team. Very appropriate, of course. We're sponsored today by DecisionLink, who's a value selling platform company of sales community. If you think through the importance of kind of value selling, that you can have a whole bunch of technical mumbo jumbo, but ultimately it's, if you're going to talk to the CFO in an elevator about either them being a customer or why they should buy from you, you're not going to talk about speeds and fees. You're going to talk about what it's going to do to impact the revenue, what it's going to do to help them save money. In the case of WorkLife, likely if you're able to improve retention, improve productivity, improve happiness, and that improves, which we'll talk about a little bit probably, you can improve somebody's productivity by 10%. What is that worth for you? And then always brought to you by Sales Community. For those that are members, thank you very much. For those that are not, Tucker, who's behind the scenes here, always helping. Thank you, Tucker. Can post. We've got a free link. You can go to salescommunity.com and you'll see upper left-hand corner. It says winter free. So you can click on that or the paid link. I recommend you do the free link. So Tucker, thank you for posting that. So moving on here with Ashby, who lives in Salt Lake City, great spot. And besides work, is very passionate about his family, has 3 boys, 8, 12, and 15, likes sports, likes strategy. So let's jump into the questions here. So your first job was actually in sales for Coke, right?
Yeah, first job, I guess kind of real job was at Coke when I was when I was 21. Yep, wanted to get into sales, and they said, all right, well, to get into sales here, you got to drive first. And so I had to get a CDL license and drive the big trucks around, and then work my way into sales over there. No way.
Any fond memories? Anything in sales there? I've never done that.
I mean, it was fun. It was relationship sales, right? I mean, you're trying to get the store manager to like you better than they like the Pepsi guy, and then get display space and drive impulse purchases and market share and all that stuff. So it's a different type of job for sure, but really fun job. And I really realized quickly that the way to get success in that type of job is just to just people like doing business with people they like, and to be able to just over service and create friendships, and that's how you won. So, but anyways, I was there for a little bit, and then I was recruited by the dark side eventually. So,
Pepsi?
doing a pretty good job in my stores, and Pepsi came over and offered me double my salary, and so I jumped over there, and so I'm a big Pepsi guy now. All Pepsi all the time. So
awesome. And then maybe kind of quickly go through your career from there.
Yeah. So Pepsi, I was there for a little bit, almost 5 years, and kind of had an interesting story on how I ended up leaving that job. But I eventually just graduated with a business and marketing degree and wanted to get into marketing sales and wanted to do more hardcore selling, or getting people to sign contracts and go out and make some real commissions. And so I switched over to superpages.com. So in the early 2000s, when we actually had phone books still, that's, a different kind of world now.
I remember those days.
Yeah. So Verizon had a phone book, and they had this online yellow page directory called superpages.com. And that's what I started selling. And this was before Google AdWords was even a thing. So that was fun. But great. I was there, kind of Salt Lake. We had like 30 reps, and ended up doing that for a few years, which was great. I doubled my salary again and made 6 figures for the first time, and was kind of a top rep over there, and did the President's Club trips and all those things, and then eventually left there to start my own business in 2007. So that was kind of a fun story.
Well, so let's hear the story, because you're going from basically a rep to a entrepreneur or founder.
Yeah, it was a really interesting story. I had never had any plans to be an entrepreneur. That wasn't anything that I had thought about or had ambitions to do. But one day, gosh, it probably was, let's see, when would that have been? That would have been in 2007. The economy was turning. These small businesses were shaving back all their marketing because they couldn't afford to do everything anymore. And so I remember walking into an appointment one day. It was with a heating and air company. And I walked in and fully expecting that this guy was going to say, "Hey, we're cutting super pages. Sorry, things are tight." That's kind of what was going on. But I knew he had just met with my competitor, another online Yellow Page directory. It's called Dex Knows. And I thought for sure that they were going to stick with them because they were a better product than we were. Like they just were a better online directory. And so I walk in and the guy's like, "Hey, things are tough, but I decided I'm going to just do two, kind of work with two companies. I'm going to work with you guys. I'm going to work with Money Mailer." And I was like, "Well, how did you come up with that decision?" He's like, "I hate working with that other guy. That guy's an idiot." I'm like, "Wait, so you're going to work with me because you just don't like work with that other guy?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, I just, know that, just trust that you're not going to sell me something that's not going to work for me." And it was right then that I realized I cannot sell something I don't believe in. Like, this is not going to work for this guy and he could go out of business. So I went back to the office. I found the other top sales guy, a guy named Scott Limford, and was like, "Dude, we need to go start our own business." He's like, "Well, what are we going to do?" I'm like, "I have no idea. Let's figure it out." So we jumped on our computers. We're looking up all these different ideas from franchises to whatever. And anyways, the next day he comes in and he's like, "I know what we're going to do." I'm like, "Well, what is it?" He's like, "We're going to be third-party call tracking providers. I found this company that will," and at the time, call recording was a kind of a new thing. He's like, "But they'll record the calls. We can put unique phone numbers in all of their advertisements. Online, we can put this dynamic number insertion. So if someone looked up a certain keyword on Google and like Utah plumbers, and they obviously didn't know who they're going to go with, and they land on this guy's website, we know that we drove that to them, and then we could listen to the call, determine ROI." And so what we ended up doing was we ended up kind of just working on that on the side. And what was great is that we could go to business owners and say, "Hey, you have no idea what's working. You're just throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping that you're making the right decisions. But what we're going to do is be a third party. We're going to put tracking numbers in with all your advertising companies, and we're going to hold the power. We're going to be able to tell you what's working, what's not. Get rid of the stuff that isn't, do more of the stuff that is, and know the difference between it all." And so that's kind of how our startups kind of emerged. And so we built that for about 8 years, and then ended up selling that company in 2015. But wow. I remember going back and talking to my wife and just saying, "Hey, me and Scott are going to start our own business." And here the economy was taking. We just bought our first house, had our first kid, and now I'm going to leave a 6-figure job to go start my own business. She thought we were nuts, but we ended up making 6 figures every year, bootstrapped it 50% each, and crushed it because we were selling something that mattered, that actually helped people. So anyway,
wow, that's great. And then what about after that?
Yeah. So, I was selling that, or we were doing that company. We were able to incubate a few other companies outside of that one. And that kind of just cash flowed some other ideas. And, for me, I was just kind of on a journey to, towards the end, I just wasn't passionate about it anymore. Like I remember waking up one day and, here we have these companies. We eventually evolved into an agency. So we found that the best ROI was internet marketing done, properly. And so we were like managing Google AdWords accounts for companies when it was kind of a newer thing. And so we evolved into an agency and digital marketing agency as well. And, I just remember that, one day, I had a customer come to me and they'd been paying us for SEO, for those that don't know, that's search engine optimization. And that is like, based on Google algorithms and things like that. But anyways, these people were paying us all this money, and all of a sudden Google would change their algorithm, and these customers come to me and say, "What happened to my rankings?" I'm like, "Google changed their algorithm. We got to start over." And so I hated selling something. Like if I ever feel like I couldn't sell something to like someone I knew, a friend or even a relative, then I knew I needed to move on. And I started just to realize, gosh, I have no control over what Google does. Like I just got disenfranchised with it, and I decided that I needed to move on. And so fortunately we had a couple of guys in the company that we'd put in charge, and Scott and I were able to sell it and kind of walk away and do something else. And so happy to move on to the next part of that story if you want, unless you have any questions.
That's right. We'll keep moving. So maybe go to work life. So I got from Paul Irving, who's one of the partners at GTM Fund that invested. I also, full disclosure, invested. And he says, He is a pioneer of rethinking sales team motivation and culture, and truly understands what drives teams to take their performance to the next level. So thanks for that, Paul. So nice intro there. Maybe tell us a little bit more about work life.
Yeah. So it was a fun story. I remember reading Simon Sinek, start with why. And I'm like, what the hell is my why? What is my purpose? Like, what am I trying to accomplish? So it really bothered me that I didn't know what that was. And so I went on a journey to figure that out. Unfortunately, with the sale of the company, I was able to, buy a few years to try to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I spent 2 of the most frustrating years of my life trying to figure it out. And for me, I really wanted to, kind of be impact focused. I wanted to solve a problem that I cared about and that mattered in the world. And I didn't know exactly what that was going to be. And so, after 2 years of just blowing through savings and my wife being like, dude, you just got to go get a job. Like, what are you doing? I ended up going to lunch with a founder friend of mine, kind of in desperation. Like, I knew this guy, he was just a friend, and I felt like he could help me. And so I remember just sitting at lunch with this guy and just being like, dude, I got to get inspiration somehow. I'm struggling over here. And he's like, well, how do you get inspiration? What are times in your life when you've been the most inspired? What brought that on? And so I started telling him stories. And one of the stories I shared with him is what unlocked everything I'm doing now. And I was telling him about when I was 12 years old. My parents had just got divorced. It was a total shock. We didn't see it coming. I moved in with my mom. She had left my dad for this guy that was a pilot, and they were flying to Colorado for a singing competition. And their plane crashed in the mountains of Colorado over by Aspen. And I remember after she died in this plane accident, I had this dream about her, and it was a very vivid dream. I kept a journal at the time, so I have it all written out. But I remember climbing over this boulder and seeing this plane fuselage spread across this meadow at the top of this mountain, and seeing my mom and talking to her on this mountainside. Anyways, it was this really inspirational kind of like dream that really helped me out. And I was telling him about it. And I kind of just said in passing in this conversation, you know what? I've always wanted to go to that place. Like, I feel like I would know it if I saw it. And he stopped me and was like, dude, it's been 27 years. Like, call your sisters before you leave lunch and plan that trip. Like, this is a perfect time to go get inspiration for, that's what you're trying to do. And so I called my sisters up and we planned this trip. And 6 months later, a day before we were going to leave, we were getting ready to leave. And I remembered all of a sudden that after my mom died, she had given, I got this picture frame from my grandma, and it had a bunch of money that was spread out inside this picture frame, and my mom's driver's license. It was just stuff from her wallet. And my grandma had just given this to me, and I'd held on to it. I could never bring myself to spend the money. I mean, as a 12-year-old, $200 is a lot of money, but I just considered it sacred money. So I held on to it for all these years. Well, all of a sudden I had this idea. I remembered the money, and I told my sisters, hey, did you guys know that I've had this money from mom's wallet for all these years? Why don't we have her pay for our dinner tonight? Like, why don't we have mom pay for part of our river rafting experience?
Yeah.
And so the hardest thing I've ever done is open up that picture frame and take that money out and spend it. And I remember giving it to the 16-year-old, it's just like, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. But for 2 days, I was in total flow, thinking about this idea of sacred money and thinking about, like, what would other people do with sacred money? Like, if I asked someone, well, hey, if you had sacred money, what would you spend it on? Mm-hmm. And you can imagine, maybe start thinking about some of the things people would answer with, right? But what it was, things that they thought intentionally about, things that would bring them happiness and things that mattered, things that had meaning. It could have been a trip like the one I took, but it could also be, things that are preventing people from doing their best work and living their best life, like addiction or mental health or the loss of a loved one or nasty divorce. So there's any number of reasons why people are struggling at their job, and companies don't do a good job at all about being able to be there to support and help people, maybe understand and overcome those things. HR is not really built to support people to do that, and so I kind of feel like we've created something. Yeah.
Where we can help people. Was the moment to say, okay, hey, if we can do this for companies, especially focused on sales teams, is that the idea?
Yeah. So that's the whole thing, is like, I was, after I had the idea for kind of work life, I'm like, let's help people set aside sacred money, surface what matters, and then let's find, ways to really intrinsically motivate them. And of course, my natural thoughts brought me to sales. And I thought, gosh, gift cards and cash and swag and stuff, does that really matter to people? Like, is that really still the thing we're doing to motivate sales? Are we still doing these crappy President's Club trips to Cancun? Like, who wants to hang out with their coworkers in their swimming suits? And does your plus one really want to do that? And it's like, why are we still doing this? You know, are people going to be more motivated to go do that or go on this New Zealand trip they want to do for their entire life? You know? So I just started kind of thinking about like, well, how do we like deconstruct these crappy incentives? Like President's Club, for example, it's like 3 months into an annual incentive, you already know who's going to win. And so it demotivates 80% of the team because it's the people that have a book of business that have been around for a long time. And so it's just like, these are, you know, and only 10% of the reps even have a chance of winning it. I'm like, why can't 100% of the reps win it? And why anyway, I just started thinking about all these things. So that's kind of where my mind went. And so I knew that I had never launched a tech company before. So the first thing I did when I came home from that trip was track down some of my founder friends that had sold tech companies. And one of the first people I spoke with was Jaron Paul. He had sold a company called CapShare. He's an entrepreneur I really respect. And I was telling him about my idea, and he's like, well, dude, I'm launching this idea called Spiff. Like, why don't you come help us and join our early team? And so that's kind of what led me over to Spiff, and they're doing amazing commission automation. So no more spreadsheets. So definitely check out Spiff. And then after I learned a lot at Spiff and talked to a lot of sales leaders about incentives and personalizing them and commissions and stuff, then I took one more stop at a company called Blueboard. I wanted to find a company that was very innovative in the recognition and HR tech space, because that was going to be part of what we were going to do. So I found a company called Blueboard, and I ended up meeting my third co-founder for WorkLife there and spent some good time there and just kind of helped them. They were selling like experiential rewards. So instead of like gift cards and so you could like, arm your people with experiences of their choice from their curated menu. Anyways, and they're selling mostly into HR teams. And so I thought, well, why don't you guys sell into sales teams? They're always doing spiffs. They're always having to come up with the next idea for a spiff. Like, why don't we launch just an experiential spiff program? So I helped productize or help them think about productizing that a little bit further. So that was great. The journey. And then I left to do WorkLife. So that's the whole career journey.
Awesome. And then, so tell us about WorkLife. And I think you've kind of been working on your product market fit and have some, maybe if you can talk about any of the customer examples or kind of early customers.
Yeah, for sure. I can get on my soapbox about WorkLife, so I'll have to think how I can, succinctly kind of tell you about it without getting too passionate about it. But, really for me, it's a happiness movement for me. I just felt like the number one problem in the world was unhappiness. Like, we've never had higher levels of depression and addiction and divisiveness. You're on LinkedIn, you see it, like this constant stream of negativity. Then we had the Great Resignation. Now we have mass layoffs. It's like employees are like going like this. There's this, I call it an eroding, relationship. It's just deteriorating at a massive rate. I've got friends that are coming to me saying, my job sucks the life out of me. I make a lot of money, but I'm so unhappy. Like, what should I do? And
so how does WorkLife help them?
Yeah. So how WorkLife helps them is we surface what matters to them. So we actually go to people and say, hey, let's figure out your personal happiness equation. We're going to help you. Our software is going to help you surface your purpose and your why, and then create goals that are going to help you actually be happier. So we're going to actually help you set aside sacred money into what we call your work-life balance. It's an actual savings account we create for every individual. We get free accounts for people. And then when companies want to link up to your public work-life goals, the things that you want everyone to know about, they pay us $5 per employee per month to link up. And now your sales manager and your CEO, they know exactly what you're working towards in your life. And so they can customize incentives around things that actually matter to you. Same with HR, they can customize benefits and recognition programs. And so what we do is find out what the company cares about and what the individual cares about. We try to go like this, and that magic, that intrinsic motivation is in that middle. It's where we can help both sides realize what they want transparently out of the relationship and help both sides get what they want. So let's just say that a sales rep is like, my big dream is to launch a food truck. I want to launch my own food truck business in 2 years. Well, yeah, we know that they're going to leave the company in 2 years, but who cares? Like, this is one stop in a journey. Why don't we find out what they actually want to accomplish? And then help them do inspired work for the next 2 years to help them get on their next step of the journey while they're helping you as a business. So that's kind of what I'm after, is like, how do we create that transparency?
Wow. And I would imagine there's, certainly, things that cost money, the food truck or bonus or the New Zealand trip or kind of whatever whatever, things like that. But I would imagine a lot of the time they're things that really don't cost any more money, which might be, geez, I did a great job. I like this recognition. I think there's this area of the company that's effed up and I want to go help it. Hey, I want to be home to be able to do dinner with my family 3 nights a week. So there's probably some things that are non-cash centric that companies can do as well that people may not be otherwise aware of, right?
You hit it right on the head. I mean, some people, when we help them, and we do these one-on-one inspiration sessions, and sometimes we do group sessions, but we really try to help them and surface what really matters. And so if we find someone, let's just say that they're working their butt off, but they've got like a 15-year-old at home, we're gonna be like, dude, your 15-year-old's gonna be out of the house in 3 years and it's gonna go by this fast. What are you doing to create memories with your 15-year-old before they're gone? You're gonna regret the rest of your life. And so we stop people in their tracks and help them kind of recenter on what matters. And, we have a whole framework that we take people through called Feel Happier. And anyway, but we help people kind of stop and figure out what matters. And a lot of times you're right. Like Randy, a lot of times those goals don't really cost a lot of money. It's like someone saying, I'm really horrible at playing date nights with my husband or my wife or whatever. And, I need to make sure that I focus on that. Well, it's not going to cost a lot of money to do a date night, but maybe the company can see that you have that goal and they're the ones that say, hey, we're going to fund your date night for the rest of the year. Take your, make sure you have that on the calendar, and maybe your manager is the one that's going to hold you accountable to make sure you're actually doing it. There's a lot of things.
Or once a month or something like that, right?
Whatever, right? But you're right. A lot of times it's not necessarily a lot of money. For me, I use the 15-year-old example because that's what I was thinking about. And I realized that what's something that me and my son could bond over. And I found out that he's always wanted to learn guitar. I didn't know that. I've always wanted to learn guitar. We did it together. So we bought this app. It was super cheap. And we just are learning guitar, through this app, same songs and stuff like that. It's kind of fun.
Oh, awesome. So are you far enough along that you actually know kind of what your ICP is? Because I would imagine on one hand, it could be CROs and sales leaders that want to take care of their teams, but a lot of times this is kind of housed under HR. Kind of how are you looking at it?
Yeah. Great question. We definitely want everybody that has a job to have a work-life account that they carry with them through their career that's in their tool belt. And so that when you go to a new company, I can go to them and say, hey, you just hired Sarah. We've known her for 5 years. We know everything about Sarah. Why don't you help me help you help her? And they link up to her public work-life goals so you can actually know what she cares about. And then her private goals, she keeps private. But one of the things that we decided to do was HR is really hard to sell into. It takes them forever to make decisions. They don't have a lot of budget a lot of times. It's a very competitive space. And I realized oh my gosh, why don't we just start with sales teams? They're always having to come up with the next spiff or incentive. Why don't we help them get away from this coin operated mentality, which is always about cash and gift cards and swag and stuff, and help them actually incentivize people with things that they actually care about in their life. And then, arm them, empower them to be able to know what that is and to help them get further along. So we realized that that's going to be our go-to-market strategies. We're going to start with sales teams. That's our beachhead strategy. And then we're going to expand into HR because we do link up to their HRIS system and the payroll so that you can do a 401k match almost for things that you care about, for, different types of programs and things. So that is our go-to-market, is starting with sales.
Wow, that's great. There's another angle here, thinking about spiffs, where a lot of the technology companies, vendors, have an indirect, they have a direct motion where they do direct selling, but a lot of them will have, indirect and through channel partners. And they're always trying to figure out what are ways that they can spiff. A lot of times it'll just be cash, or you sell this and you get this much cash, or you can go into a hat and we'll have you go on a trip. But, this would also be another really interesting, cool thing where some people to get leverage from somebody else's sales force as well.
Yeah, totally. I mean, in a future world, I see everybody having a work-life account the same way you'd have a LinkedIn account. This is your LinkedIn for your personal life, though. And if you're hey, so-and-so partner of ours or channel partner is really been helping us, or we'd want them to help us, go look into the work-life account and see what they're working towards. And then, we're going to have unlock the ability for peer-to-peer. So if you're oh my gosh, they have this New Zealand trip they've been planning for 5 years and they're only $1,000 away from hitting that, go finish their goal off for them. Be hey, just go New Zealand. We're making that happen. Thank you. It's meaningful appreciation. It doesn't really matter. The money isn't the important thing here. It's about recognizing and helping people get further faster towards things that they actually care about. And it's just different. If you give a rep $5,000 and say, hey, go work nights and weekends for us for the end of Q4 and help us hit this number versus like, hey, New Zealand, I see you got this trip. If you help us, it's going to be nights and weekends for the next few weeks, but we're going to take care of your trip. I talked to the CEO, New Zealand's done. Like, we're paying 15 grand. It's happening. And even though, and then when that rep goes home to, their plus one or, their significant other, they're saying, hey, this is what the company offered, say it's your wife, she's going to say like, well, go make that happen. Like, I got the kids, I got everything taken care of. And now when you're getting home late at night, she's not pissed at you because she knows that you're going to make it up and then some, because you guys are going to New Zealand. So it just makes it way better. And now you have a rep that's like actually cares about hitting their accelerator and making that a reality. And it's just different than giving someone 10 grand. Like, here's 10,000 if you go work nights and weekends for us. If they've already made 200,000, there's a point of diminishing returns where throwing more money at someone is not going to get them to try to work harder.
Absolutely. Especially, I always find over the years, sales can be more coin operated, kind of financially driven. And obviously there's a lot of ways that they're not, but a lot of times the vital pre-sales people are ones, they care less about the money side. It's more about kind of what are the intangibles, what's the training, what's the enablement kind of tools, kind of some things like that, which, similar, pretty low cost. So tell us, what about, you mentioned kind of briefly this inspiration session. What's that?
Yeah. I found out very quickly that, even though we want to build software that's going to be the best in the world at helping you surface, discover, and accomplish what you want to do in your life, like, there's a human component that's got to be there for accountability reasons, similar to my guy that was like, call your sisters, plan that trip, put on the calendar, like, he held me accountable to do it and followed up with me. And so we realized that we need to do the same thing. And one of the things we realized was that it probably is not going to work if it's coming from inside the company. Like, if it's your manager that's using WorkLife and trying to be your accountability partner, they have a responsibility to the company, and helping the company do what they need to do. So we realized it needs to be a third party. It needs to be someone, we call them your tapestry consultants. And so when I use the word tapestry, it's a combination of the word happiness and tapestry. So think of like your vision board for your life that's going to directly improve your happiness. That's what we do, is try to help you create your personal happiness equation, which changes over time, because what made you happy 5 years ago is totally different than what makes you happy today. And so it's a moving target. You got to stay on top of it. That's what our software is going to do. But what we want to do is have consultants that would be like your person that you meet with once a month. And all they do is they're like your dream manager. They're the ones that are like helping you kind of surface what matters and making sure you're making progress towards those things. And then have your company pay for that person. Like, maybe it's a matching component where it's like, hey, if you put $1 in, we'll put in 4. This is the company talking, towards your tapestry consultant. And so you've got this person that's with you through your whole career as well. And then they're helping you, like like you mentioned, career pathing or whatever. It's like, hey, I really want to be a CRO. What do I need to do to get there? And it's like, oh, well, hey, here's this program over here. You can actually use your work-life balance. We've got a way to be able to get you like mentors and coaches, and the company will pay for, we'll pay for $4 out of the $5 to get you your coach you need or whatever. So lots of different ways you can do it.
Yeah. I mean, I would think it'd be a practical way would be just a manager with his team, his or her team. So she could then say, okay, hey team, I want to, get better engaged, understanding important to you. Obviously, as you said, there's going to be some private things not to touch, but kind of a bunch of other things, especially in today's goofy world with Zooms and people not really getting back into the office. That could be really great exercise too, from any manager doing that with their team, right?
Yeah, I agree. I feel like managers are failing at an epic level, right? Like, I'd say 9 out of 10 managers suck because they don't ever surface what matters to the people, like, and nor do they have any ability to help them. And so, I envision kind of a world in the future where, your one-on-ones is all about that individual. Like, hey, what are you trying to accomplish? You're like, what do you want to do? How can I help you? And then it's like, instead of being disingenuous and not really having any ways to help them, you have work life and you're able to say, well, hey, will you do me a favor? Make sure you put that in your work life so that your managers, everybody can see that's what you're working towards. And not only us as your managers, but your coworkers, your peers could all pitch in and help you. Look, write this book you've always wanted to write. Like, let's get that done. Let's make that happen before the end of the year. It's going to cost 10 grand to self-publish it. Like, done. Let's make that happen. And so now this person's like, holy crap, like, I'm actually going to go accomplish this thing that I've always wanted to do. And my company's helping me.
Wow, that's amazing. What about, is there a PLG motion here for you where you can kind of give the kind of, I'll say, the tool out to, individuals, and then they could kind of share it amongst them or share it with their, with their manager, and then you try and do an, upsell ELA.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's why I kind of say we're a B2C to B. Even though we started off B2B, it really is hyper focused on the individual and arming them with work life so that they have that with them. And, and then when they go get hired on by, let's say, Qualtrics or something, I can go to Qualtrics and say, hey, you got like 5 people with work life accounts. Like, why don't you like connect up to their accounts and help them build incentives around things they actually care about? And so then they pay us the $5 per employee per month. And then that's our PLG. And, if a rep had like their company supporting them with like a company match or other things with work life at their previous company, and now they go to the new one, well, the first thing they're going to do is go to their managers and raise their hand and say, hey, like, why don't you help me with my work life goals?
Yeah.
So we're going to give free work life accounts to individuals.
Awesome. So Bill McMurray is actually the CRO there, is a good friend, and we actually literally just missed each other by 24 hours back in Aspen last month. So if that happens to be an account you're dealing with, I'm happy to help. And then on the mental health topic, I mean, Richard Harris is probably one that comes to mind as kind of first and foremost out there, out front. Just has so much great content. And what I learned, we had him on one of our early podcasts, but just this whole mental health, I mean, just such an important topic that people a lot of times just don't know really how to handle it or what to say or how to do it. And it seems like work life is just a terrific bridge to have that discussion, right?
Yeah, I feel like, I talked about that eroding relationship between employees and employers. Like, there needs to be a middle person, a mediator, almost like if you had a nasty divorce, like, well, how are both sides going to ever come to agreement on things? Like, they're not to say that can't happen, with businesses, but it's harder. It's becoming harder to do that. And so I feel like work life will kind of be this group that can sit in the middle, help HR, help the individual, help the company, the leaders, kind of all surface kind of what really matters, and then both get what they need out of the relationship. And I just feel like that's the elephant in the room today. Like, I feel like nobody has a really elegant solution on fixing the future of work, except for us that I know of, that's actually feasible, that could actually work. Because one of the things that we're going to be able to do is do what HR cannot do. People don't want their company to know if they struggle with mental health because they don't want to be on the next round of layoffs, and HR isn't even built to help them, and never will be, in my opinion. I don't think. I just think that like people know nowadays that like you're probably going to be at a company for 2 or 3 years and you're going to be moving on. And that's okay. And so what companies need to be doing though is just find how to help them do inspired work while they're there. And then the whole goal, the whole key is to helping them accomplish what they want in work and life. And so it really has to, I tell companies all the time, stop talking about yourself. Like, nobody cares about your company or making you rich or your investors. Nobody cares about your mission, vision, or goals unless you care about theirs. You've got to start with them first. And if you don't, you're the company that's going to be left behind as everybody else moves on. And I feel like Work Life is the first company of its kind to be able to tackle the problem in the way that we're going to do it, that will actually work.
Oh, fantastic. And I should have mentioned before, so for those watching along, you can hear us or see us. We cannot see you. But if you post any comments or any questions, we have Tucker behind the scenes that will ably pull that up. And Travis, I'm sure, will be happy to answer them. So feel free to chime in in any way at all. So you're kind of this kind of serial entrepreneur founder, and you've got a handful of guiding principles, I think, in your founder capacity.
Yeah, I mean, the why in Work Life, the reason why that why is there isn't just because I wanted to get the domain. It was just because I really wanted to have like a North Star, that remember that why we're doing this is to improve happiness in the world. Like, it's got to be the biggest problem in the world. There's nothing that I can think of that's more important than the unhappiness epidemic that we have. And it's because people spend money on the stupidest things, and they need to get refocused on what matters. And I think we see this with like posts from like Ian Koniak from Salesforce. And you hear all these reps that are like, I thought this would make me happy. I thought it was the Maserati. I thought it was the $1 million paychecks. It wasn't. I lost almost everything, including my marriage and this and this and this, because I wasn't focused on what mattered. And really, at the end of the day, like, I come back to this, the longest ongoing research study is a study on happiness, where they followed JFK and a bunch of people his age from Boston or other areas through their entire life to find out what really helped people live longer and happier lives. And the single thing that came back to, and that study's still going on today, is meaningful relationships. It's about like having meaningful relationships that matter. And, you probably want to have more than just a few. Like, like if you just have one meaningful relationship, say it's your spouse and they pass away, like we've all seen it where that person's health suddenly declines and then they're gone quickly because that was the only like meaningful relationship they had. So I'm all about like helping people kind of like create those relationships and, focus on those and other things that kind of falls under this feel happier equation that we've got. But relationships.
Yeah, that was, that whole kind of relationship stuff was a couple weeks ago in the Wall had a big article. I think they do the same thing every 6 months, but certainly absolutely vital in this day and age as well. So what about we ask a couple questions of everybody to get the perspective. So what advice do you have for people that want to break into tech sales?
Yeah, advice for people that want to break into tech sales. I would say that it's all relationships. Like find out the people that have been successful in tech sales and then go find a way to go to lunch with them, right? Just learn what you like. When I first got into like superpages.com, what I did was I annoyed the hell out of the best sales reps that were there. And I made them like drag me along and I found out like how they handled objections and how they sold. And I adopted the things I liked and I didn't adopt the things I didn't like, but I kind of like found out what everybody did. And I found my style that worked. But just find those people that you admire and respect. And I would say, find the people that sell the right way. Find the people that sell with empathy and ethics and that lead out with relationships because people want to do business with people they like. So find out how to be likable and figure out how to create a likable personality because people will just want to do business with you. And so that would be, I guess, probably the main advice that I would give.
Absolutely awesome. Gong, who's one of our sponsors, you talked about call recording software before, but that's one of their primary use cases where if you're a new hire or maybe you've got a experienced sales team, you're able to kind of pull some of those snippets, kind of share across with everybody. So helping to automate kind of some of that old school tactics that you used to do for sure.
Yeah,
and then what about
so amazing? Tools like Gong are amazing because you're able to just go in and listen to all these calls and like it makes it so much easier than when I was going through that.
Yeah, crazy. What about any advice for those in tech sales that have been impacted by recent layoffs?
For me, my advice is always to help people solve their personal happiness equation. Like if you don't have anything to anchor to that you're working towards, you're just going to stumble through life. You're not going to have any direction and you're just going to be blindly going through your life and making a lot of mistakes. Like you got to find your why. Like you really do. Like I know it's cliche, but what is your purpose? What do you want to accomplish in your life? Like if money and time and resources weren't objective, what would you be doing with your time? And then like really analyze that and figure out like, man, am I just a horrible person? Like, just make sure that like, you're working on things in your life that are like going to bring you happiness. Cause that's what life is all about is living a happy life. And just make sure that like, you kind of like figure out like what would really make me happy. And for one guy, like I was talking to sales rep the other day and I finally got to the root of it. And he's like, gosh, you know what? I would just love to open an ice skating rink. Like I would be so happy if I just had an ice skating rink and I could, cause that was a passion of his. I'm like, well, what are you doing to make that happen? He's like, I don't know. I've never thought about it. I didn't think it was a reality. I'm like, well, how much is it going to cost to get that set up? And he's like, X dollars. I'm like, well, then let's come up with a 5-year plan to make that happen. And he was like, all of a sudden liberated, like, oh my gosh, like, what am I doing? And I'm like, exactly. So he was a CFO. He was actually, sorry, he wasn't a salesperson. He was a CFO at a home builder and was telling me that his job was sucking the life out of him. I'm like, what? And then I asked him, I said, what if your company knew that was your goal and had a clear 5-year path to help you launch your ice skating rink? He's like, I would kick butt for that company. I would do whatever they needed me to do. And so just feeds into kind of what I'm talking about, obviously.
Awesome. I always wanted to be a Zamboni driver. So he does a rank, I'll drive the Zamboni.
That's awesome.
How about that?
Hey,
what about
sounds like a good work-life goal. Sounds like a good work-life goal we need to make happen for you, Randy.
There you go. What about startup founders that you kind of respect or admire, maybe you've learned from?
Yeah. I mentioned Jaron Paul. He was amazing. I had no business being the CRO at Spiff when we started. Had no tech, selling experience, but he just let me come in and really I gained the most out of that relationship. I learned a ton. But he has just always been someone that I've really respected. Jaron Paul is awesome, and he's just a good human being, cares about his people, wants to do the right things for people. He's very top of my list for sure. And just helped me out a ton. Davis Smith is founder of Cotopaxi. I just love impact focused founders. I call it, anybody that wants to be an impact unicorn, like isn't worried about being a unicorn so that they can just make $1 billion and go off into the sunset, but that really wants to do good in the world and make a difference for other people, are people that I really respect, because money changes people and it's really hard to stay grounded when you've made a lot of money. But there are some founders out there that really do good in the world with what they're doing.
Great. What about any maybe advice that you've received along the way from them, or kind of any others that has been impactful on you?
Yeah, for me, work life is something that I may want to take into the sunset. Like I may not ever want to sell it. And so how do you go raise money? If that's kind of your goal, right? Like you can imagine that, like, investors invest for a reason because they want to. But I really kind of am passionate about this impact focus around happiness. And there are investors, there are people that believe in human happiness and things like that. And so I guess a lot of the advice I got was kind of helped me shape on how I could actually pull this off and create a company that could make a huge impact in the world and still help everybody get what kind of they want out of the relationship, right? Investors included, and still have something that I'm not going to have to be told by investors, I have to hire this person for CRO. Well, how am I going to create culture in a company if I'm being told who I have to hire, right? That don't align with the why. And so there's all these really hard challenges if you're a funded company and needing to create culture, wanting to have a people first culture, it's difficult. And so, I got a lot of good advice on how to actually make that happen. And so, I've been able to, kind of make that all work. So because of advice from, just different people. Yeah.
I should have asked you when we were prepping here. Sorry. Is there a link or anything like that people can kind of set up their own accounts now?
Yeah. So we're just starting to kick that part off now, where we're giving people kind of free work life accounts. It's kind of like the free profile is kind of in a little bit of a beta. So we're starting off with salespeople. So if you're a salesperson, AE, sales manager, whoever that wants to kind of be part of our beta, just go to our website. It's just Work Life. So WORKLYF.
Tucker, maybe we can post this. So
yeah,
you said it's
just go there.
Worklife.io.
Yeah, go connect us with us there. Hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so you can hit me up on LinkedIn and say, hey, I would love to be part of the, the free Work Life beta, and then that's great. We're launching a thing called the Future of Sales Summit. It's going to be in Fiji in next year. And so there's going to be a way for reps to be able to come hang out with Richard Harris of the world, Scott Lisa, a bunch of amazing people, where we're going to be having a lot of fun and celebrating reps who sell the right way, but also talking about the hard topics around creating the future of sales that we all want to see, mental health. All these things are really hairy topics, and we want to get to the root of it and solve for those things. And so we need to bring the best and the smartest people out that are passionate about those things. And that's what the Future of Sales Summit is going to be all about.
Awesome. So Tucker, for those that may see this after, I think the kind of the communication chain stays out there on LinkedIn. Maybe just add on, if you can, please, Tucker, something like for a free beta version of Work Life, go to, and then put in the worklife.io. And that way, then it might be a little bit more straightforward for everybody. And I assume that's on your site, Travis?
Yeah. And I think right now it just says there might only be a link to. So we've been in stealth mode. So we just are finalizing another round of funding, and now we're actually coming out of stealth mode and doing the Future of Sales Summit, and finally being out there where people can see us. Right now, if you go to the website, you're going to see that there's not much there about work life and the things I've been speaking about. It's very vague, but we are going to be relaunching the new site in March. And then there will definitely be a link for people to sign up for the. So if it's not on there right now, I'll have to double check.
So it's not there now. Okay.
It might not be there now, but we will have that up there by March 1st, probably. So, and then also for companies, we do free inspiration sessions. So if you just want to have us do a session for your sales team, where we can get everybody together on a Zoom call and help them go through our framework, our Feel Happier framework, to help them kind of create their vision board, their happistry, if you will. That's free, and we just do that, and that's something that they can always have with them. And then, at some point, if companies are like, hey, we actually do want to help people get further faster now towards their goals, that's when they can pay us and upgrade to the paid version.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah. So we can talk offline, but probably you can post that in sales community. And I can, obviously, LinkedIn, you got to be careful because you could get, hit up from too many, but I think you've got a nice curated ICP with the sales community folks. Awesome. So anyway, time flies while we're having so much fun here. So any kind of closing comments, Travis? You've been great.
You know what? No, for me, I'm just really excited to, I just am really excited to change sales. I just think this is the greatest profession in the world. And I think that there's so much more we can do to help people. People want more than just a paycheck, right? And companies just got to do a much better job at really helping people kind of find meaning in their work. And the way that you find that is by just caring about what they care about. Truly, you have to be able to focus on them, and we'll empower you with the tool to do that. And so that's what I'm passionate about. It's hard for me to ever not get on my soapbox and talk about it because I'm passionate about it. But I just really think that there's a path forward to fixing what's wrong in work. And I think that we're going to be a big part of that solution. So I'm really excited about it.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Well, you've been awesome. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Travis Ashby, CEO and founder of WorkLife. Next week for episode number 114, we have Joe Koenig, who's president of WWT, Worldwide Technology, one of the larger, probably largest technology solution providers out there. So that'll definitely be a great session as well. Thanks to Decision Link for sponsoring. And for those that are not members of Sales Community, you can click on our salescommunity.com/winter free link and get a free membership. So Tucker also posts this on all the different social mediums. So for those that saw it, awesome and thanks. And if you want to share it with others, you can definitely get access to it. So thanks, Tucker. Thanks, Travis. Have a great rest of the day.
Okay. Thanks so much, Randy. Appreciate the opportunity.